Well, here we are. Hello, everybody. oh, I have to kind of break a little bit of a funk. So, hello. I already see we've got a couple people in here already. See, we've got Girl It's Been Noticed, the Rugged Midwesterner, and Corentin. You've made it. Welcome to the stream. So, for anybody whom it's their first time here, see, Comrade Ace is here. This is a stream I do once a week in the hour before a new Step Back before a new Step Back video goes live. And in that hour, I talk to y'all in the audience about things. We have good times. We share rants and laughs and comments and all sorts of fun stuff. And then at the end of it, a new Step Back video comes out, and we all get to watch and like and share and subscribe before moving on with our day. So, hello. Hello, friends. Oh, we're starting with today's video. All right. Today's video is about scientific racism. So scientific racism, the sort of Victorian belief, the whole idea of racism and its relationship with science. This one's going to get me in a whole lot of trouble, so it'll be really fun. I think even a few of, I feel like some scientists will be less than happy, but most will be pretty happy. It's got some stuff that talks about how there was a long time where racism was considered accepted, legitimate science. And so we need to always be conscious of what assumptions we're bringing to the table and all sorts of stuff like that. Well, yeah, this is So yeah, it's a fun subject. It's also pretty long, so it'll be a good time. Do you talk about racism in the 15th and 16th century? Not strongly. I kind of go from like the classical age to the Enlightenment, and I definitely say some nasty stuff about Enlightenment thinkers, because Enlightenment philosophy has a lot of racism baked into it. A lot of them did a lot of justifying of slavery. Okay, is ContraPoints a communist or a liberal? Okay, so ContraPoints is, I mean, I can't put words in her mouth. She has to speak for herself, but from the way that I've heard her speak, she's probably would I reject the idea of labels altogether. I think she's even said in one of her videos that like she doesn't like labels, and she just lets other people do the labeling for her. But her positions seem to skew rather left-wing, especially with a two-part critique of capitalism. That doesn't sound very liberal to me. So, you know, that's a thing that works. Okay. I've never seen ContraPoints dismiss people based on them being too left-wing. I've never seen ContraPoints. I've never seen her speak favorably of capitalism or performative progressive things or anything sad like that. So, like, I don't know. Her leftist cred seems pretty solid in my books. I don't know what anyone's I don't know if there's problems, but you know, sorry, gotta get a bit warmed up. I'm a little underslept today. So it's a fun subject, though. With the lack of scientific literacy out there, it makes me a little nervous. Yeah, so there is, of course, something to talk about in that, where there's a lot of people who are less than good at, just put these things away, I should not play with them. There's a lot of people out there who have a very kind of anti-science message towards them, which is not good. I think that there's some extremes that are going on in especially internet circles. What do you know? The internet's creating extremes, but one is considered oddly mainstream, which is the idea that science. I see Jenga Trees here, and Jonathan Sims is here. There's a whole industry of people who have become huge cheerleaders of science, which, is great, but it does seem to lead in directions that can point towards, look at Sargon of Akkad's, the social sciences, not the right sciences. They're just a study, etc., etc. That stuff's kind of hacky and terrible. And also, I think that from all as someone who was in grad school, thank you, Hayan Radwan. As somebody who has lived a good amount of time in the graduate school system and spent a lot of time as a friend of multiple scientists, I think that many scientists, not all, mind you, but many scientists would be perfectly okay with following the scientific method and realizing you have to be skeptical and interrogate your own assumptions based on your perspective, and always be reevaluating your own positions. And I think that that's a thing that that happens a lot. And I do think that on the internet, though, there seems to be a lot of people who are really trying to overcorrect for the skepticism of scientists that results in things like anti-vax pseudoscience and climate denial, but and flat earthers and such like that. But I think that the overcorrection has this sort of scientism angle to it of being really over the top really over the top, thinking that that scientists and the scientific method are these completely perfect, foolproof systems that are almost objective in nature, and that they are not human design systems. And I'd really love to talk more about this in its own video, but it doesn't really fit Step Back, because science itself is a social construct of people. Science isn't a thing that objectively exists. It's a concept, a model of how the world works that's built through debate, discussion, and writing. And it's very human. I mean, only 4 years ago now, I think, we almost threw out the entire, not all of it. We had a situation in social psychology where a huge chunk of their experiments couldn't be replicated because of p-hacking, which is a widespread thing in a lot of the sciences, even the hard sciences. And so there's a huge replication crisis, and a whole bunch of studies had to be thrown out. And those kinds of things happen. I mean, science doesn't exist in a vacuum. People don't pursue their interests because they, not only because they have pure passion about it. People pursue things because they need to keep publishing articles. Otherwise, they're not going to finish their PhD, or they're not going to get a job, or they're not going to keep getting funding, or they need to publish something that is more interesting than what their experiments actually came up with, because they need to get more popularity. Because in science, when you are a scientist, the way to move your way up in the world is to be more what's it call it? Is trying to they're trying to get themselves a reputation and trying to get themselves to move up in their career and get to move up as scientists. And if you don't publish extremely interesting articles, you're going to miss out. Hello, Shechar. I see you changed your name, so I couldn't tell. Yeah, so there's a whole culture in science of people who are under a lot of pressure that has nothing to do with searching for the objective truth, that pushes them to do things like publish these experiments, make experiments look a certain way, tell the stories a certain way so that they can get into the right journals, so that they can get the right rewards. And it results in a lot of things that could be incorrect. And also, scientists are humans, and a lot of people who go to grad school, because of how grad school works, tend to come from economically privileged classes, which means there's a lot more white people, there's a lot more men, there's a lot more higher class people in the sciences. And that means that they come in very often with a lot of blinders, and they do a lot of they make a lot of assumptions that don't make a lot of sense. And there are some things that are considered like verified scientific evidence, or they were at least for a very, very long time, but like they have no actual basis in reality. And yes, today's video is about scientific racism, hence why I went on the science rant for a little bit. Sir Zhao Zhao, do you think that there can be racism against white people? I mean, it's a thing that would be theoretically possible. It would require a non-white race of people to have gone through centuries of colonization, conquering all of the world, especially Europe. They would either need to arrive in Europe and subjugate all the people there for several centuries, or go to Europe and capture people and take them far away from their homelands and turn them into slaves for multiple centuries. Then have that process gradually wind down, spend another couple centuries doing nothing to make any reparations for such a situation, but say that you solved the problem and that everything is square, then have a society that is entirely based around that group's advancing that racial group's interests, and then get to today where you have people who deny that racism even exists, even though you've created this highly structuralized racial hierarchy. And if that ever happens in the future, then yes, you could say that there would be non-white racism. But at the moment, that doesn't exist. Racism is very much about how the entire structures of power, how the structures of power have been capitulated over the century, like how, because of historical consequence, the ways that power work in the world have put us in, have put privileged white people over non-white people. And it does mean that there are a bunch of, in millions of small ways, in almost every structure, even to like the words you use and unconscious biases, we have an entire superstructure, entire culture designed to privilege one race over another. And that's racism. And we haven't gotten rid of it. And it would take a long time to make, it would take a long time to restructure it in favor of somebody else. But like, it's not like there's something inherent in not having white skin that, or in having white skin that causes racism. It's not a thing like that. It's historical consequence. It's that white people, European people, were the colonizers, and we had a long history of conquering and subjugating other peoples. Um, Next question: do you talk about the Inquisition? Well, Ron, I feel like I've mentioned the Spanish Inquisition at some point in my videos. I feel like I have talked about. I have done some. I have done some stuff on the Inquisition, but I've never done like a video about it, like a focused on it. So I can't say that. I do know that I wrote an essay in undergrad about a Mexican noble named Don Carlos, who was the only Native American to be tried and executed by the Spanish Inquisition. He was an Aztec noble who was a rebel against the enforcement of monogamy, because when the Spanish were conquering Mexico, they sort of they tried to push Christianity on the upper classes, on the old Aztec nobility, in order to kind of push it downwards, and that involved getting rid of a very complex series of polygynous society. So a lot of Aztec people had multiple, or Aztec nobles had multiple wives, and they tried to outlaw the practice of human sacrifice and a lot of the religious rituals that were associated with Aztec life. And Don Carlos was someone who was baptized. That's why he had the name Don Carlos. But he was trying to push against the imposition of Western Christian cultural norms onto Aztec society, and proposed creating a new sect of Catholicism, like the Dominicans and the Franciscans, that would focus on indigenous people and would be like an Aztec Catholic church that would allow for things like, hello, Shakar, you've been noticed. That allows for Aztec, or allowed for Aztec cultural practices to continue. And for all this, he was charged with having heretical idols in his home, and was burned alive, which caused massive riots in Mexico. And the bishop of Mexico was actually fired for this, and the church put in a decree that the Inquisition could not apply to Native Americans, because they were considered, quote, new Christians. They were brand new, exposed to Christianity, and that's why they couldn't put it in. If we get UBI, will the shitlord stop complaining about bigots getting fired for saying and doing shitty things? I don't know. I doubt it. People will always complain, like bigots will always complain about that. What I worry about with UBI is that it would put the foot in the door for being able to fire people over anything, because you have you're not ruining someone's life by firing them necessarily. And so I feel like that would put the impetus in place for a lot of the restriction of people's rights to organize and unionize, and give people less ability to stand up for what's right in the workplace. I think that could result in a lot of workers' rights being very, very flimsy, because if you're fired, you can just go on UBI and you're fine. All right. Didn't it start with people trying to replicate a software version of the Milgram experiment? Yes. No, it started with something else. I should honestly ask my wife. She's actually a social psychologist, and she knows way more about what happened in that situation than I do. But they did try to replicate. They found out that there was like a Swedish psychologist who was like flat out fabricating his results to get them published. Like he was like a straight up con man. But then they started trying to replicate a whole bunch of other studies and found out that like less than half of studies in major social psychology journals were did not replicate, and that this scam guy also had many articles published in high-end social psychology journals, which led a lot of people to have kind of a breakdown. Is racism against Irish people white racism? Yeah, so this is actually interesting. So like anti-Irish racism was a thing for a very, very long time. And there's this concept called the charmed circle, which is sort of it comes from queer theory, but I think it applies to racial categories as well. And that is what was considered white at one point in history is different today. See you later, Corante. Or whoever's leaving. Yeah, so the charmed circle, you know, grows and shrinks over time. And so the category of white can be expanded and contracted. And Italy, especially Southern Europeans, seem to have been able to join that for some reason. Mostly because a lot of Irish people were really good at being even more racist than regular white people against people of color. So, you know. And it's also very, location conscious. Like things like in the UK, there's still some prejudice against Irish people. I mean, mostly they're stereotypes, but for the most part, I think that the Irish have been able to assimilate into the white hegemonic culture. What about Japanese racism against people during colonization? Well, that's not exactly anti-white racism now, is it? What's the video? The video is about scientific racism. Did you hear about Eurovision? I guess Israel won. I don't know. I don't when it comes to like Eurovision, like I think I maybe have watched one performance of Eurovision in my like entire life, and it was the bearded woman Austrian singer who did that song "Rise Like the Phoenix" or whatever that got all the attention a couple years ago. That's the only thing I know about Eurovision. I know it's really weird. I know sometimes European geopolitics comes out in it, and that Israel recently won, and everyone's like, everyone's making a big deal because Israel won this thing, but Israel's also like murdering people right now. So I'm not sure how to take that all. It's very strange. Eurovision seems very politically charged and strange. Have you heard of a conference held in Spain in the 16th century with the aim of determining the status of Native Americans? I vaguely know what you're talking about. It was like this situation where they were figuring out whether these are people that need to like all be exterminated or saved or something like that. I don't exactly know too many details about that period of colonization, to be honest. Yeah, racism is about, like, there's some people, lobster people, for example, that would probably try to explain away that racism is some sort of biological bio-truth about us being against people who don't look like us, and that's the whole thing. But really, it's about power and domination. It's just like how rape isn't about sex, it's about power. And racism is about taking tiny, tiny, tiny morphological differences in humans and using them to justify the conquest and enslavement of others. And this continues to today. mean, just look at how the Palestinians are treated as like okay to be exterminated because they're Arabs. And this is the whole thing. All right, 600 years ago, what age did Native Americans born in your part of North America typically become sexually active? 255 AD? I am actually not sure about that. I live in Toronto, where we've had several groups live here over the years. In general, I don't know anything about when people became sexually active in these societies. I know that it was quite a bit less constrained and like political and predatory like it was in Europe, but I don't know any details on that. Have you heard about literature Nobel Prize controversy? The Swedish Academy that decides the prize is in chaos right now due to the Me Too movement. That's great. What's it called? The Nobel Prizes have been a joke for so long. They've given so many awards. They've given so many peace prizes to freaking monsters, and they've given so many like scientific awards to people who have committed some of the worst atrocities in history. If they're going to try pulling a whole bunch of Nobel Prizes to people because they found out that they were horrible sexual predators, or because they were, workplace harassers and things and horrible towards women, then fucking go for it. Like, fuck it. Take away every single author who has a Nobel Prize in literature with the Me Too movement, or who's been wrapped under the Me Too movement. Take it away and give it to a woman who's an author. Like, seriously, fuck those guys. I think that the Me Too movement is actually one of the greatest things that has ever existed. It's one of like the few happy things that is going on today. Just recently finding out that apparently it looks like what's it called? Looks like Morgan Freeman's going down too. If capitalism wasn't here, would you still be doing step back videos? I probably would. If capitalism didn't exist, I'd probably still be making step back videos. I'd probably not make them as fast. I would probably want to do, if I were in a situation where I wasn't trying to aggressively grow my channel so that I could pay my bills, I would probably be spending longer on each video and making them a bit more long and focused, like a lot more high quality and longer, and talk a little bit more. Alrighty. Suppose Elizabeth Warren ends up as the next U.S. president. Will that be a good thing? I mean, if Elizabeth Warren was president, that wouldn't be the worst thing ever. I mean, I feel like if Elizabeth Warren were president, she'd probably be the best president in U.S. history. Would she be a perfect president? Probably not. But also, she has a pretty low bar to beat to be the best president. So all she has to do is like not be a horrible monster who invades countries and imposes a racist hierarchy on their system. Like, I feel like, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren being president would be a net positive to the world and to the United States. Oh, since there's a bunch of young Gen Z people in here, I'm going to make you guys all think I'm cool. Ready? Oh, yeah. I am cool. I think this is exactly a year out of date now. But capitalism gave you your computer. Well, actually, the need to make intercontinental ballistic missiles made my computer. There's a really great book called Command and Control that shows that the development of the computer is very much tied to the need to organize organized logistics during the Second World War, and then it grew because of the need to digitize and coordinate a nuclear arsenal in the 50s. And that is really how the computer had a lot of its most important inventions happen. And it's why the internet exists. They're all programs done by universities with tons and tons of government money. Capitalism had very little to do with it until very recently. All right, I found my fidget spinner. I also have a fidget cube. So this is an actual legit fidget cube. I kickstarted the fidget cube because these things are great for people with ADHD when you want to pay attention to something. And I've got a fidget cube here to keep me from getting too distractive. Do you think that do you think doors are a true threat to American students, or is it the fact that women don't let men down easy enough, or don't let? All right, I know. Okay, I feel like I might have missed out on something. So, do you think doors are the true threat to American students, or is it the fact that women don't let men down easy? I feel like I'm missing something in that. Can you clarify, the girl that's been noticed, please, so that I can answer your question properly? Sir Zhao Zhao. Each prize is dedicated by its own committee, and the Swedish Academy that decides the literature prize is falling apart because the husband of an Academy member is a rapist who the Academy has defended. Yeah, fuck the Academy. Don't defend rapists. That's not an easy thing. That's not a hard thing to do, okay? Seriously, if you, like, it's not even like workplace harassment or like allegations. Like, if the person's an actual fucking rapist, like, no, they are not your friend anymore. If somebody is somebody who's committed a sexual assault or a sexual harassment, they're not a good person, and they should not be running things like big fancy committees that give away $1 million prizes. Tristan, are you ignoring my questions? I don't know. Am I? I haven't seen. Okay. Oh, I got that one there. Listen, this chat moves very fast. I have to. It takes. It's hard to see everything. Just those are some of the arguments posed by Republicans on the internet. Oh, geez. Trump just canceled the DPRK summit. Oh my goodness. Okay, that sucks. Yeah, I like that was like. See, thinking that Trump could be capable of doing one non-stupid thing in his life apparently, was unfounded. Canceling the meeting with the DPRK and possibly causing some more stability to happen on the Korean Peninsula. Can't have that, can we? The Texas school shooting. I haven't heard too much about the Texas school shooting up here. I know that it happened. I know that it's like sticking out because of how how just non. Yeah, no worry, Dan. I got that it was sarcasm. Don't worry. I just thought I would use it to rant about computers because I studied computers when I was in my PhD. In elementary school in my area, fidget spinners were banned because a kid threw another kid and split his forehead open. Holy crap. Okay. What do you know about the autonomous Shinmin zone? I've heard about it a few times because I've had a lot of people request I make a video about it. I don't know anything about it. I imagine it's a thing that I will find out about whenever I get around to researching that video for a hypothetical future video idea. I have no idea when that's going to happen, though. It is not a video I expect that will do very well, so it would be a favor to you guys, which, I could do if enough people ask for it, but at the moment it's on my long-term plate. Was the Texas shooter also an incel? Holy shit, man. Now I feel like the guy who killed 10 people just up the street here is like inspiring people. That's awful. In a direct, democratically run economy, is that what Marxists want? Yes. If you read Marx and you figure out what his idea of the quote dictatorship of the proletariat is, it's the people who are working, having decisions over what happens with those things. It's the people who do the work to make things, owning the things that are needed to make those things. Like it is a factory owned by the workers of the factory. God, that sucks so much. I hate incels so much. I really don't want to give them attention. Do you know about the New Zealand Discovery controversy? I do not. How did Native Americans view homosexuality? This is a little bit open-ended. I'm not people. We don't exactly have great data on this, and oral traditions that come from the living indigenous peoples today seem to have the influence of European ideas about homosexuality imposed on their narratives. So we're not exactly sure how homosexuality was treated in a lot of old indigenous societies, pre-Columbian indigenous societies. We do know that they had a sort of they had a less strict sense of the role of gender, and what like gender was a lot more assigned to what kind of work you did than what kind of role you played in society, and that changes a lot. But it's really context dependent in a lot of different places. Like in Mexico, there's probably a lot more harsh penalties against homosexuality because of because they had a feudal system. So very complicated. Other than you, the other famous Canadian Tristan is a basketball player who cheated on his pregnant wife. How do you feel about that? That's a very bad Tristan. Don't cheat on your wife. That's bad. That's not good. There's another Tristan Johnson who's also a MMA fighter out of Halifax. I don't know anything else about him except that. You just got your PhD last spring, didn't you? W.R. Costin, no. I dropped out of my PhD last spring. I dropped out at the end of April. So, in a way, I did finish my PhD. I just didn't get a PhD out of the deal. I'm new and glad to be here. Well, welcome. Let's see what's Rishab Agarwal. Welcome to the stream. I'm glad to have you here. Do you want to do videos on Indian and South Asian history? There's so much interesting stuff that goes unnoticed. Yes, I have. My most popular video to date is my video about Sikhs, and I would totally want to do more videos on Indian history and South Asian history. I just got to think about subjects that I could cover that I could do without learning a whole bunch of new languages in order to do properly. There are a few, and they're on my list, but they're difficult because a lot of writing has the kind of stink of colonization when it comes to Indian history. But I've read a few things about like concepts of time. But that's a whole different thing. Perhaps there was no form of homosexuality in Native American tribes. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is very much very likely to not be true. Homosexuality has shown up in virtually every corner of our species. It shows up all over the place, even in the most homosexual repressive societies on Earth. The idea that doesn't exist is like a thing that like the Soviet Union would have said, or like that China says today, where China like literally says that there are no that nobody in China has any mental illness and nobody is homosexual, and it like Russia used to say that, or the Soviet Union used to say that, and those things are patently ridiculous. I mean, shit. Homosexuality is practiced in almost every animal species that has sex on Earth, especially ones that are very related to us, like chimpanzees and bonobos. Wait. Bering has been banished? He's been banned? That's good news. I would be very YouTube would be a much better place if Bering had been banned. Yeah, Ghana, Uganda. I think it was Uganda. Homosexuality is a white man's sickness. That is the legacy of colonization, if I ever heard one. I have a video about Iran coming out next week, and I talk about how certain ideas, even if they're socially progressive ideas, because if those if they've been attached to European interventionism and colonization, they've been like toxified in that society, and that's why you end up with a lot of former colonized countries with a bunch of really regressive ideas, because we've done so much damage to that society that now anything that we say is considered evil. And yeah, we earned that one. It's bad. It's probably why we should not colonize and intervene in other people's lives, because all we do is cause problems. Did you see that TYT cover, that GOP candidate who wants to euthanize, re-genocide the disabled? I haven't heard the Young Turks talk about it. I have heard about this guy and the fact that he's the Republican nominee for what, like governor of Alabama or something. And I'm like, oh shit, that's fucked up. That's super fucked up. I don't know how the hell that people get past that part. I mean, I understand how America works, so it doesn't surprise me, but it kind of just shows up that like that connection between like Nazis. Me and my friend have a meme about Canadian people being really nice. Please notice. Okay. A lot of people say that about Canadians. Yeah, it's strange. If you make a video on Weimar, Germany, I will name my first son after you. Holy shit. All right, Ace, I will say this. First of all, Tristan is a unisex name. It's like Taylor or Jordan or Shannon. There are girl Tristans out there. I've met a few. I actually, very briefly, when I was in my late teens, dated a girl named Tristan. It was very awkward, and that's kind of why it didn't last long. But I was planning on making a video that would have Weimar Germany in it, and it's called A Brief History of Germany. And it is planned to come out sometime soonish. But then I ended up having a chat behind the scenes of the So That Happened people, and we decided to make more of a thing out of it. And so now it's going to be like a video that's going to show up on Step Back History, where there's going to be like a 3-part video that shows up on Step Back History and Emperor Tiger Star and the Alternate History Hub, where like I would talk about Germany, up until from like the Germanic tribes time all the way up until the dismantling of the Holy Roman Empire, and then Emperor Tigerstar would take the Prussia, like the whole 19th century period, and then the 20th century, the 20th century person, like the 20th century Germany with the Weimar Republic and World War II and stuff would be done by Cody, and we would have this 3-part thing that would give you a whole thing about Germany. I don't know when that's going to come out, though. It's just an idea, basically waiting for me to write my part of the script, and then we would be moving it to other people and moving that along. So it'll come out when it comes out, but it's a thing that is in the works because of that Weimar Republic idea. Does that count? Does that mean that your son or daughter can be named Tristan if I get that off the ground? Mr. Rocco Marchigiano. Marchigiano. Is that, I don't know, is it Italian? I don't know. Welcome. Howdy. All right. I haven't seen what I haven't found. Country stating interview. Okay, our Supreme Court just made a right to privacy and fundamental, and therefore it should not lead to legalization of homosexuality. Oh man. Whatever works. I mean, you know, get whatever you can with the BJP in charge. Anything that points towards social progress is a victory with them, because they're super right wing and very nationalistic and very Islamophobic. Yeah, BJP, not a fan. All right. Today was supposed to be senior skip day, but I have to do a math quiz instead. I am sorry, Doughboy DeVito. I love when you don't have to go to school. It even if you just finished an entire holiday and you get 1 extra day because of a snow day or something, it feels like a treat. It feels like just beautiful, and to have it taken away must be the worst feeling ever. Do you know anything about voluntourism? Not a whole lot. People who use volunteer opportunities to travel. Sounds like a good idea. I wouldn't mind doing that. I mean, I need a lot of I need work right now, but if you're somebody who's financially independent enough that you're willing to volunteer for room and board, woofing and stuff like that, then yeah, it could be a pretty interesting way to travel, or to travel. Is Emperor Tigerstar a decent creator? For some reason, I haven't subscribed to him until now, despite seeing him on that Sunday thing that you do with Cody from the Alternate History Hub. W.R. Costin, Emperor Tigerstar has good content. I would say it's very specific. He's not going to be the openly accessible history channel like I try to be. I try to make history interesting to people who might not even find history interesting until they find my stuff. Emperor Tigerstar is a history for history's sake type of creator. If you already really like history, especially if you like things like maps, he is definitely a person to go to. The main driving thing of his channel is he makes maps, things like electoral maps and drawing out districts and things like that. And that's his big thing. And so if you find things like that, if you find things like an animated map that shows the fronts of World War II changing every single day, that's a thing that you could do. But if not, I don't know. What is ethnogenesis? I have no idea. My girlfriend thinks that volunteerism can be problematic, that it can lead to developing nations being viewed as places for rich college students to save. I mean, to an extent, that's true. But I mean, I do think that getting white people to leave the bubble of their first world existence and seeing how the rest of the world lives, even if it's not perfect, is still probably a thing in a positive direction. I know that there's a bit of like a white savior complex thing, but I don't know. I feel like enriching young people's lives by getting them to see more of the world is not a bad thing. And they are, like, you know, working. And sometimes, a lot of the times that people do volunteerism, sometimes go to places like Europe and work on like organic farms and stuff, and like, you know, whatever. I mean, okay. Don't try to save people with your volunteerism. That is true. And I can imagine it'd be very obnoxious. I can see both sides of that argument just as good. It's tough. That's a tough one to talk about. I would probably say, oh yeah, learning skills and then taking those skills out of the community. Yeah. Honestly, if you want to like try to do a good thing and go abroad, more like doing like language teaching, I feel like is a more useful thing to do than I don't know. I just like people giving up their time and their skills and their effort in exchange for seeing more of the world and like doing better for themselves, like doing like having them have a perspective that's not just their own comfortable existence just feels good. But with these kinds of things, I know that it's difficult. I know that it's a complicated discussion, and so I understand. Feeling either way on it, and honestly, it's a situation in which if I wanted to come to a better answer, I should probably talk to the people who actually do volunteerism and see what actual effects it has on communities. Because I think that that's a thing that would come down to how it affects communities. And otherwise, I feel like it's just sophistry, you know? Do you know of the recent movement of some South Africans of land expropriation without compensation? If so, what are your thoughts? I do not know what that's about. I'm sorry. If it weren't for you, I would choose to study geography. Thanks for saving me. Aw, Comrade Ace, I hope that whatever you're doing, even if it was geography, that you're doing it with passion, and that you enjoy it, and you are going to use whatever skills you learn to make the world a better place. You could do anything, and if you're doing those things, then yeah, go for it. And yeah, we're coming near the end, so I'm gonna have to speed up the questions. I feel like I'm drifting. All right, okay, so many questions. I'm gonna copy a bunch of these down. Oh no. It's all right, Ace. You'll see me next. I'll be here next week. Oh, geez. Said quick questions, and I started copying a whole bunch of them down. All right. How should I go about convincing my centrist dad that he should support the UK Labour Party if he doesn't want the welfare state to go away? Show him all of the things that that the Labour Party has been involved with creating in Britain, and try to show what more right-wing countries that have voted Tory in the past have done in the ways of backsliding the sort of systems that make the world work. Unless you're your dad's like a Lib Dem voter, in which case, look at Canada and look at how many things have stagnated because of our centrist government ruling for so long. How should I go? Okay, yeah. Do you think China's model of government is sustainable in the 21st century? Because as people get better off, they will demand greater freedom. It's a good question. Good thing China's really good at censoring information to its people, and they're still going through a big wave of economic growth. And if Saudi Arabia has taught me anything, it's that when people are getting richer, they actually are less politically involved, which, you know, it's when things are getting worse or more unequal, that's when people get mad. Or actually more when people get more mad when things get worse and society is very unequal. All right. Happy with your content. You've covered quite a few great topics. Wish you'd make longer videos. Much more could have been said on the Black Panthers, and this is just a thought. I'm trying to make them longer, Jose. I agree. I like my longer videos. I have a video coming out next week that is going to be about 23 minutes long. So I'm making an effort. I'm trying to make all of my videos at least over 10 minutes. How should I go about Oh, I already asked that. I already put that question down. What's your favorite color? I am a fan of purple. I like purple. Purple is my favorite color. That's why Step Back is colored purple. And I went to two universities where purple was the color. South Africa has forced farmers with their land with no compensation. That's terrible. That's not good. Don't take people off their land, even for money. I don't like eminent domain's the worst. Is it ethical to buy alternate history novels written by problematic writers such as S.M. Sterling or Orson Scott Card? Depends upon how you do it. If you buy it via a used bookstore, that is a good way to do it. Or if you just steal the book from the internet. Just don't buy the book new. Are you straight? Unfortunately, girl that has been noticed, I am. I am a heterosexual. I am very much on the heterosexual side of the Kinsey scale. Although I have been very much involved with LGBTQ plus or LGBTQIA plus activism and communities. I live in the gay community of Toronto. I was a member of my university's Pride Alliance for several years. I helped them a lot with the sort of fundraising work and with helping them build a little social network at my university, which was very small. And I have been very close to many, many people. I've been very, very close to many, many people in said community to not feel some sort of camaraderie with queer activism. All right, running a little bit low on time, but let's see how it goes. All right. What do you think about New Zealand's discovery controversy? A research said Spaniards could have arrived first. I don't know. I'd have to look into the data on that. I haven't. This is the first I'm hearing about it, so I'd have to do research if I was going to answer said question. But there's a lot of theories about that. So, you know, yeah, 255 AD. Would you date a trans woman? Well, you know, I am married, so. There is that, but that's a cop-out. I think that that doesn't answer the question that you're trying to get, and that is, I have nothing against dating a trans woman categorically. Like, I'm not exactly sure because you know it's about the people, not about the category to me. Just like if I were single and I met a man that I was totally infatuated with, then sure, I would. Trans women are women, and if there was a trans woman who, if I were single and there was a trans woman who was interested in me and I was interested in them, then like nothing about them being trans would stop me. I just don't see the I guess that's like the way that I would look at it. That's a question. Okay, question. Stonewall riots. Have you / do you intend to do a video? It's on my list. I will give it a bump up, though, because you asked. Somaliland has all the characteristics of a country, but is denied by the international community. What do you think? Another thing where I'm like not super sure about what's going on there. Tristan Swahili for wisdom. That is definitely not true. All right. It is 2 o'clock. I'm going to give you guys the link. Here is the video. Another real whirlwind week, or whirlwind stream, you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. I hope you guys enjoy the video and have an amazing week. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Be excellent to each other.